I was pretty impressed with my juniors and senior students because as high
Nice.
schoolers, they were able to make conclusions and self-assess, and the collaborative conversation that we had. My students first have an understanding that they're going to be working in a
Mhm.
hands-on environment. So the praxis approach, learn by
Right.
doing, entering in my 6th year now doing this. And I've developed programs specifically for the career technical program, and one of which is the entrepreneurial pathway.
All right. Well, Jack, thanks again for joining. And I guess the first thing everyone would like to learn about is a bit of your story. I don't know if you can tell us like how you started and how you got to where you are right now.
Well, as a online instructor teaching in a unusual but unique format online with a charter program that's
Mhm.
state funded. We work with homeschool students, but in a wide array from the entire 3 regions in California. But how I got to this position or place in career technical education is a bit of an unexpected roundabout surprise for me because of the pandemic that really changed things up for me as a traditional brick and mortar instructor
Right.
or teacher. So
Mhm.
I taught middle school for many years in the
Mhm.
STEM subjects, and coming into an opportunity here to work strictly from home, and that was just a big shift for me. But
Mhm.
I think it works out well. I'm entering in my 6th year now doing this, and I've developed programs specifically for the career technical program, and one of which is the entrepreneurial pathway.
Mhm.
That stems from my background, and I was a business owner. Probably, it's probably been
Mhm.
almost 20 years ago, so it's been a long time. But
Right.
I'd worked in industry for a number of years in aerospace engineering. But I started my own business and did that for nearly 10 years prior to changing career paths and going into different, exploring different things. So now in my, you
Mhm.
know, final stage, or you want to say the years closing in on retirement, believe it or not,
Wow.
I'm actually closing in very closely to it. Um,
Congrats. Yeah.
Thanks. I'm working in education, so this has been a pleasure for me to work with students, inspiring
Mhm.
them with just the real world applications and
Right.
about opportunities to use online platforms to enhance or engage students. That's the big thing for us. Online instruction is really focused on giving opportunities to work interactively and
Mhm.
in class, outside of class. And then I work with cohorts that we develop through project-based learning. And
Right.
that's what I've been doing, is using the combination of design thinking from
Mhm.
the training I worked at Stanford University, and then also here in California, generally with the Buck Institute, integration with those two things with project-based learning.
Right.
That's what we're doing now, is we're using Startup Wars
Mhm.
as well as curriculum I've developed, and then just a standard curriculum, textbook based, just to be the foundation or platform
Mhm.
for business, introduction to business.
Excellent. That's quite the background. And if you don't mind my asking, can you remind me what kind of business you used to work on? Because I think you were more like on the inventor side, right?
Yeah, I was a bit of a MacGyver inventor. So I integrated some of my engineering background and actually worked contractual GSA contracts with the Naval Department as well as the Marine Corps. So it was mostly because my background in aerospace was flight and with jet propulsion. Then we worked with military contracts mostly. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite the shift, going to education. But I'm glad you liked it. It's worked out for you.
Yeah, there is some humor behind the parents that say, "Oh, so your teacher is what? What did he do before?" And students are like, weapons of mass destruction." I'm
Oh
like,
boy.
"No, no, no, no."
Yeah.
Kids exaggerate, but my math courses and my science courses, they did have some knowledge that I did do missile technology as a primary area of work. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And so on that point, Jack, how would you describe your teaching philosophy, like specifically entrepreneurship education? Like, what does a typical class of yours, look like?
Yeah, my
Mhm.
students, they first have an understanding that they're going to be working in a
Mhm.
hands-on environment. So the praxis approach, learn by
Right.
doing, and they enter into the fundamentals of business with just, the foundational understanding of how to create a business plan in
Mhm.
their first year. So as even ninth graders, it's a little bit challenging to
Yeah.
have to do that, but we look at it with the pedagogy of the working like in a structured environment where they see themselves as like employees, right? They're like
Mhm.
starting out, so they have to have like a career path and understand entering into a resume, having to develop those life skills first. So we're holding their hands, walking them through that progress through a 2-year program. And
Mhm.
the first year is all introductory, but they are getting very deep into the understanding that they're developing a self-inspired business. So they
Right.
to come up with a project right away and work with each other to vet their ideas in the first couple months. And then the remainder of the year, they're working on understanding the bits and pieces, the cogs of how businesses function. So they
Mhm.
create a business plan that ultimately, with the project-based learning, they work through 2 semesters, and then at this point in the year where we're coming into the end of spring, they're going to do their culminating presentation to some, the guests that we invite.
Yeah.
And the second year is more a ramp up because they actually have to, interview people in the industry, uh,
Mm.
get some feedback. A lot of them, thankfully, have parents that are in business or related to, because that's what inspired them. But then we have the second year have a kind of a panel of interviewers and people that are asking questions about their business plan, the regimen of how they set it up, and then of course some more uh, in-depth industry kind of questions. And not everybody can come into it knowing that we have a variety of students looking at different industries, but
Right.
business sense of the word, they have to do this pseudo Shark Tank sales pitch, type, looking for like mock investors.
Love it. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad from like the very like from the get-go, it's all about experiential or like hands-on. Because I think in business specifically, it's really hard to ask a student to apply what they learned short of going out there and starting a business. So um, you know, I've seen other instructors also follow like that route, maybe like pitches, Shark Tank like activities, and I think they can learn a lot more from those things than just from reading off the textbook, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. It is challenging. You're right. I find myself always gravitating toward the more experiential and just
Hmm.
talking about, the stories, right? The stories that are so powerful about how businesses operate and the pitfalls of being an entrepreneur. So, and then having to balance that with the fundamental, right? The nitty gritty stuff that they're getting from their textbook content, which I have to say is, as you said earlier, AI and different things are impacting all industries. So a lot of the textbook content is becoming obsolete. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
why we need to have our foot or hand in current industry and being able to talk,
Mhm.
with relevant, this current events and so forth. So I'm scouring the internet, talking to people that I remember or can connect with from industry or just having businesses. And we start low level. It can't be
Mhm.
that we can't throw them into the pit or the fire right away. So they're thinking low level. With my CTE club, the CTSO club, we have a handful of students where they actually take the information and the practice into actually developing a business and
Mm.
operating one. So they start with something like an Etsy shop or local business at a farmer's market, and we've
Yeah.
had that in the last year pretty decent experiences. And then this year we're trying something a little bit new with doing some type of sales or working with the, I think, network in our
Mhm.
homeschool program. So that's pretty wide because it covers Southern California, Central, and then Northern California. So I fly to these locations and they're about to do their big pitch and promo at these sites where they have all the families come to these, they call them park days, and they get to present their business a little bit and then try to do, they look at it as fundraising, but it is an opportunity for them to speak about their business
Oh yeah.
and then yeah, have a little sales opportunity and generate some income. So we were doing that this year a little bit differently because it's more in person than it's virtual. But they do have an online shop that they're operating, and they work with my other pathway, which is the
Mhm.
product design and product development
Yeah,
student. And so they create products to sell as well.
that's great. I think in any company, like sales is always a priority, right? So I think getting that down, getting them to practice, it's so important. And it's also like to learn to sell themselves, right? They'll sell their ideas and to investors potentially and whatnot. That's great. How do you normally, or how have you integrated startup wars like over the last couple of months?
Yeah, I started out first with my second year students because they
Mhm.
understand the terminology, and it give them opportunity to first review the content from the
Mhm.
previous year, their first year, look at their first year of developed business plans, and
Mhm.
then we use startup war terminology, the content to build up and setting up the business
Mhm.
to make the tie-in, the connection. So that's what we did in fall. And
Mhm.
then mid-fall we started looking into how to get startup wars into the hands-on practice. So
Mhm.
we went through cycles with the students. In all honesty, because it's new to me, I hindsight, certainly I could have done it differently or better. I think comprehensively,
Yeah.
knowing now some of the aspects of it and some of the content you sent me was very helpful on seeing other teachers or how they,
Mhm.
created preliminary, instruction.
Mhm.
That's something that, I'm trying to do now in the test bed of my first year
Right.
graduate students from the first year, is giving them opportunity to look at it, not
Mhm.
necessarily go into it themselves entirely, but do some hand holding. My second year students this year, they did really well because they went through the cycles of, beginner, intermediate, and advanced.
Right.
And from the takeaways, we do a lot of reflective work and journaling.
Mhm.
I could see that in comparison with what you had shared with me from other, even college students,
Mhm.
how they engage with the application. I was pretty impressed with my juniors and senior students because as high
Nice.
schoolers, they were able to make conclusions and self-assess, and
Mhm.
the collaborative conversation that we had pretty much was, it was, and it would be where it should be. I think if
Yeah.
anything, a little bit more advanced than a high schooler student. So
Yeah.
I was thankful for that, to see that they could make those connections on how to be strategic,
Mhm.
strategize on how to run those different businesses. The lunch truck one was the first one, and then they
Yeah.
stratify and look at different options. And I think they got a hang of it, and they're more fluid than even I was when I started, when I tried to, mock up or
Yeah.
something, because they were spending a lot of hours on their own, um,
Really? Huh.
doing it themselves just to test it out. And I had one student in particular, he's like, he kind of separated the look, and I was like a little bit at first, felt like it was discouraging. I wanted him not to do that, but he looked at it as, I'm a gamer, and I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the software, how it runs. So he was
Ah,
analyzing the algorithm and then trying to beat the algorithm, right? Trying to
no way.
That's why he was, that's the kind of mindset I have some of my students that, some of them are heavily on the spectrum too. So it's like an autistic
Yeah.
student is like really trying to break this thing down into its, the finality of who the programmer, what they were thinking,
Mhm.
and how to not necessarily hack, but, play the
Yeah.
game, so to say. And I was
How
like,
to game the game. Yeah.
well, yeah. So I was like, I'm not sure if that's the approach we want, but let's look at it from both standpoints. I can appreciate
Mhm.
um, you know, the approach, because that's, how young people, generally speaking, they do see it that differently than just this.
Mhm.
I might hate to say it, but maybe look at it a little bit more institutionalized, but it's not. I just want them to, play it as if, right, they were running the operations. But we got
Yeah.
to that point. We had that conversation as well. It's like, okay, are you playing this as a game, or are you looking at as something more,
Mm.
in terms of simulating the real thing? And
Yeah.
so, but they were able to, I mean, have a great reflective conversation among
Mhm.
them. That was really good.
That's great. I love that kind of students. I remember a specific case a couple of years ago. He was a college student. I think it was a freshman, and he was a I think he was a computer science major, and he played the simulations like a total of 30 something times. And we actually ended up hiring him as as an intern for 6 months in the QA side, because he was just so good at detecting like anomalies and just trying to kind of game the game. I don't think he was able to do it, but he tried it, and that's kind of effort. I mean, that out of the box, outside the box thinking is
Hmm.
really
Yeah.
sounds, yeah.
Well, that's those game testers, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's great, Jack. I'm so happy that the simulations have had that, and at least with that student, it seems like they were really into that, and just I guess the something I know a lot of people would be interested in, especially since you also teach online, not just an entrepreneurship course, but what do you think is, or like, where do you think the future of entrepreneurship education is heading? Like, do you have any advice, anything you should say, be on the lookout for this?
Well, for sure, in the development of business
Mhm.
plans, I can see more push in from automation, and of course, the use of AI is becoming more and more prevalent on streamlining operations. But
Yeah.
I'm the type of person that I am, skeptical and hesitant about just, I always encourage my students to think first and look before they lead, kind of do the research. So I'm forcing them to vet and cite anything that they're about to implement into their business plan.
Yeah.
Uh, so we have that conversation, and it
Mhm.
is probably the most, relevant or most concerning, question is like, how are we adopting AI into anything and everything we do?
Yeah.
I can see some, the benefits, but then weighing the benefits and at the same time not giving so much of ourselves that our creativity, innovation, and even
Mhm.
self-thought is lost. That's something that is a challenge. And the conversation and how seeing my students adopt that
Mhm.
is, it's fresh. And I think I can appreciate them as digital, natives, to
Yeah.
they see it differently than I do, right? Because so I'm always as well learning how that can be effective. So
Yeah.
I have a niece who's in real estate, and she's only just started a couple years now
Mhm.
after college, and I can see her, how she does her socials and how she's integrating the bots into her website and everything. And I'm always questioning, okay, how much of it is going to be the generative, that's something. And
Yeah.
so that's the question is, um it's too easy to to look at it from that standpoint. Is like, oh, I'm just going to give everything over and simplify it, but then you lose something at the well as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what
Agreed.
the this application or using simulations is great. I think to hold on or maintain the human element, which I
Mhm.
appreciate, for example, our conversations and having a dialectic that goes forward with that is important. And so I'd say always keep the human element and that center. And I have one student,
Yeah.
she's actually operating a business with her mother, but she's going to bring in the right 21st century thinking. But they do like a skincare products and self, kind of like a natural, not the not the chemical-based things, more naturopathic.
Okay.
And the one thing she did say, even though we had this long discussion on the benefits of using generative AI stuff, is she said the center of my business is always going to be human-based, and I want interaction between myself and my employees, my future employees, and my clients to always have some form of human connection, and
Yeah.
not to ever forget that, to make that the kind of the vision and mission statement is based on that. So
Yeah.
so I think that's important to note as an entrepreneur or a business, is don't let it go so quickly to just allow for place, so to say,
Agreed. I think you hit the nail on the head. Personally, I'm a bit against, like certain aspects of AI, like especially just like the cognitive offload. I mean, I think that's really dangerous, especially like in a school setting, right?
Yeah.
Because you're depriving, students of the opportunity to be creative and, to be in the grind. And even I myself am skeptical. Like whenever someone emails me with it's clearly like an AI written email, with the M dashes and all, I'm like, okay, is this authentic? Did you put any effort into it?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the landscape of education clearly is already being impacted in ways that people are not completely with. It's subtle, right? At first it seems subtle, but even at the elementary school level, which my wife teaches at, I can see it's very easy for people to almost be like misled to think that that's the solution, right? To go there and, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and allow AI to generate. They even have applications. It's called Magic School or something like that. And
Okay.
it's like, oh yeah, just go ahead and create a lesson plan. Just let the AI do it for you, and you're gonna get it in a snap. But then when you look at the lesson plan, the saying is, it's like, it's a mile long but 2 inches deep. It's like there's the quality of material, unless you have your experience and your training behind it and get the depth of knowledge there, it's going to be shallow, and it's going to detract from students experience as well. So that's why I'm really thankful my pedagogy includes and involves the project-based instruction. We can't let it go to become something like automated. It's not good.
Yeah. You can't replace like good practices like those with AI, especially with attention spans ever becoming lower and whatnot. I myself, as an adult, like I know my attention span is much slower than like 15 years ago, and can't even imagine what it's like for a little kid.
I definitely, for sure. And I know we can't necessarily stop things from entirely happening. I can see the landscape of education becoming more virtual and based. But I do think there is room for the pushback for those of us that say we're going to implement, the human connection. We're going to make sure that that's always, you want to say that the woven thread in the tapestry that's always going to remain. There's got to be a human connection, and even in like life coaching, and you can't say, I'm just going to let a bot life coach me. That would be hazardous. Right.
Most likely, yeah.
Right. So you've seen, and I'm sure we've heard those stories starting to happen.
Oh boy. Well, yeah, we have to brace ourselves. But well, that sounds all very interesting, Jack. Thanks so much. I think we learned a lot from you today as well. It's always good to hear these stories. And well, yeah, if you have any, words of wisdom, for anyone out there, we're happy to, use this platform for you as well. I'm sure a lot of people, can learn from people like you. So yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.